The first car ever built had 3 wheels. The second one, too. In fact, for the first 20 years of automotive history, the most serious engineers in the world kept choosing 3 wheels over 4. Cugnot's 1769 steam tractor, 3 wheels. Karl Benz's 1886 Patent-Motorwagen, the machine that holds the actual birth certificate of the modern automobile, 3 wheels. So why do you have 4 wheels under you right now? The answer isn't obvious, and once you hear it, really hear it, you'll never look at a parking lot the same way again. Let's start with the geometry, because this is where most people get it wrong. 3 points always define a perfect plane. Always. No wobble, no flex, no adjustment needed. A 3-legged stool never rocks. A camera tripod sits perfectly on uneven ground. 3 wheels mathematically should be the ideal solution. And yet, when you steer a 3-wheeled vehicle, when you push it sideways through a corner, the physics turn against you fast. All the lateral force concentrates on the outermost contact point. The vehicle wants to pivot around its outermost contact point. Tip the weight high enough, push the corner fast enough, and the car rolls. This is why the Reliant Robin, Britain's most famous 3-wheeler 750cc engine, sold for 30 years, became a national joke. Jeremy Clarkson famously rolled one on every corner in a Top Gear segment. What he didn't tell you, his producers had modified the differential to make it tip. The real car was more stable than that, but not by much. The fundamental problem with a narrow 3-wheeler isn't the shape, it's the center of gravity. Get it too high, put too much weight over the wrong axle, and a triangle that looks stable on paper becomes a lever arm waiting to find the ground. 2 wheels, that's a different problem entirely. A motorcycle stays upright through gyroscopic effect and constant balance input from the rider. The moment it stops, it falls. You cannot build a passenger car on 2 wheels without a fundamentally different approach to balance. And every attempt to do so in the 20th century, from experimental gyroscopic cars to absurd concept vehicles, remained exactly that, experimental. So 3 is geometrically perfect but dynamically dangerous at speed. 2 requires active balance, and more than 4 gets complicated fast. We'll get there. 4, it turns out, hits a specific sweet spot, not for obvious reasons. Here's the thing about 4 wheels that took engineers decades to fully understand. 4 contact points on a rigid axle system overdetermine the geometry. Meaning 3 points define a plane, but 4 points don't necessarily lie in the same plane. Put a table on an uneven floor and it wobbles. You only need to lift 1 leg a millimeter. This sounds like a disadvantage. Early critics of the 4-wheel layout made exactly this argument, but it's actually the feature. The solution was the suspended axle, a system where each wheel can move independently relative to the chassis. Suddenly, 4 wheels stop fighting the ground and start reading it. Each contact patch adjusts to surface variations, the chassis stays level, the load distributes. This is the key thing that makes 4 wheels work at speed on real roads: load transfer. When you brake, weight shifts to the front. When you accelerate, weight shifts to the rear. When you corner, weight shifts to the outside. With 4 contact patches, 2 front, 2 rear, you have 8 possible directions to distribute that weight. The car can use friction from 4 separate patches simultaneously. A 3-wheeler in a hard corner is trying to balance a lateral load across only 2 of its 3 contact points, which is exactly the wrong 2. 4 wheels also solved the steering problem that haunted Benz in 1886. Benz chose 3 wheels for a specific reason. He couldn't figure out how to engineer a reliable steerable axle. 1 wheel in front is easy to steer, just pivot it. 2 wheels that steer together at slightly different angles because they trace different radii through a corner require what's called Ackermann geometry. It took a coach builder, not an engineer, to work it out properly. Rudolf Ackermann patented the principle in 1818, almost 70 years before the automobile existed, while designing steering for horse-drawn carriages. By 1893, Benz solved it. The Benz Victoria, 4 wheels, proper front axle, Ackermann steering, went into production, and the 3-wheeled motor wagon quietly retired. The rest of the industry looked at the Victoria and followed. So if 4 wheels distribute well, why not 6, 8? Some vehicles do use more. Semi-trucks run 18 wheels. Tank transporters use dozens, but they're solving a different problem, spreading enormous weight on soft or damaged surfaces. Every additional axle on a road vehicle adds weight, mechanical complexity, rolling resistance, and cost. Past a certain point, you're paying more than you're getting. There's also the tire development problem, and this is where the story gets strange. In 1976, a Formula One team called Tyrrell unveiled a car that stopped the entire paddock cold. The Tyrrell P34 had 6 wheels, 4 small ones in front, 10-inch diameter instead of the standard 16, and 2 conventional wheels at the rear. The designer, Derek Gardner, had a specific theory. Smaller front wheels would tuck behind the front wing, reducing aerodynamic drag. 4 of them, instead of 2, would recover the lost grip. His calculations suggested the equivalent of 40 additional horsepower in drag reduction alone. At the 1976 Swedish Grand Prix, the P34 didn't just work, it won. Jody Scheckter crossed the line first, Patrick Depailler second, a 1-2 finish in a 6-wheeled car at the only race in Formula One history where such a car has ever won. Scheckter called it a piece of junk and left the team. The car died in 1977, not from any fundamental flaw in the concept, but because Goodyear couldn't develop the special 10-inch front tires fast enough to keep pace with development on the standard-sized tires used by every other team. The P34's advantage eroded with each race. By 1978, Tyrrell was back to 4 wheels. The lesson here is less about wheels and more about infrastructure. A solution that requires its own supply chain is always fragile. 4 wheels won not just because they're physically optimal, but because they became the standard. Tires, roads, parking spaces, suspension components, everything evolved around 4. The more infrastructure built on 4, the harder it becomes to justify anything else. Every generation, someone tries again. The Reliant Robin sold from 1973 to 2002, nearly 30 years, not because it handled well, but because in Britain it could be driven on a motorcycle license. Tax category, not physics, kept it alive. At peak production, Reliant was the second largest British car manufacturer by volume. The Piaggio Ape, Italian, 3-wheeled cargo bed, has been in continuous production since 1948. It's still made today, still sold across Southern Europe and South Asia. In Naples, in Mumbai, in rural Portugal, the Ape does jobs a 4-wheeled vehicle can't do. Narrow streets, steep inclines, tiny load capacities that don't justify a full van. Then there's the modern attempt, the Arcamato FUV. American-made, electric, 2 wheels in front and 1 at the rear. The more stable configuration, as it turns out. The company argues that for single-person urban commuting, a 3-wheeled electric vehicle hits a weight-to-utility ratio that 4-wheelers can't match. They're probably right about the physics. Whether they're right about the market is a different question. The pattern across all these cases is the same. 3-wheelers find niches where the 4-wheel compromise breaks down. Too wide for the street, too heavy for the cargo, too expensive for the trip. They survive at the edges, they don't replace. And the reason isn't physics alone. Here's the piece nobody talks about. The modern road was designed for four wheels, not because four wheels are optimal in the abstract, but because that's what was already on the road when paving standards, lane widths, parking bay dimensions, and turning radius requirements were all codified into law. A standard parking space in the United States is 8.5 feet wide. That width derives from the average width of a 1950s American family car, which was four-wheeled, which had its width determined by the need to fit two adults side by side, which traces back to the width of a horse. Yes, the width of a lane on a modern highway is, in a roundabout way, descended from the width of a Roman war horse. And once lane widths were set, safety standards followed. Crash test protocols assume four-wheel geometry. Tire pressure regulations assume four load points. Insurance categories assume four wheels as the default. Every layer of regulation that accumulated over a century of motoring locked four wheels in place as firmly as any engineering decision. This is what economists call path dependence. The technically optimal solution gets replaced by the socially embedded solution, and the embedded solution, once embedded deeply enough, becomes optimal by default because everything built around it reinforces it. Four wheels won the engineering argument by 1893. They won the infrastructure argument by 1960. After that, the question stopped being why four and started being why would you ever change? Cugnot's steam tractor crashed into a wall in 1771 because he forgot to design brakes. Three wheels, no brakes, full steam ahead. That's how automotive history started. Karl Benz chose three wheels in 1886 because he couldn't solve the front axle. 7 years later, he solved it. The fourth wheel went on. Everything changed. The Tyrrell P34 proved in 1976 that six wheels could win a Grand Prix. It also proved that winning once isn't enough when you need a tire company to develop a product specifically for you and only you. And the Reliant Robin, that wobbling, tilting, perpetually mocked British oddity, outsold most of its four-wheeled competitors for 3 decades in one of the world's most car-obsessed countries by exploiting a loophole in motorcycle licensing law. Four wheels aren't on your car because someone proved they were perfect. They're there because they were good enough, early enough, and they built the world around themselves before anything else had the chance. The road is the argument, and the road won. If this made you look at your car differently, or your parking lot, or the highway, or the width of your lane, hit subscribe. There's a lot more history hiding under things you look at every day. What's the strangest wheel configuration you've ever seen on a real car? Leave it in the comments.